I'm Yuri Kasdorp from Mouse, and we are here with a special kind of episode of the Track Guides. We're here on Daytona. This time we're here for the Daytona 24, the first proper special event of the year. We had the preparation last week with the Roar, but this is the big one. In my opinion, the best special event of the year every time. Very popular race, very long race. If you can participate in this one, I would highly recommend it. Lots of splits going on, so there's good racing for everyone, should be. It's a multi-class event, which means that there's going to be GTPs, the prototypes, LMP2s, slow prototypes, and these GT3 cars. Again, long race. We have a lot of straights, not that many corners, which might sound like it makes it an easy track, but a lot of straights means that we are running the car very, very low downforce configuration, which means that we're very much down on traction, down on rear end on the high speed, and it makes it very, very tricky, especially because we're running high fuel loads to low fuel loads in the stints, and maybe even doing something with the tires on some classes. That means going to be a long race about survival, but also about the lap time. And the lap time is what we'll go into now. Gonna show you first small lap around the track, and then we go into more detail about it. Without further ado, let's get into it. So here we are, starting from the last sector. As usual, I would say, running the race fuel, but this time the race fuel is a lot. We're running the full tank because we're getting ready for the 24 hours. The 12, 24, long one here. First special event of the year, this big special event. We had the Roar as preparation for this one, but this is the big one. Mercedes AMG GT3 EVO. Car struggles a bit on traction, a bit on braking, so we want to square the corners up, but it is a Giga in a straight line, which is obviously a really good thing around this track. Turn 1 from the outside, we want to be braking at the white line. Then aim for the inside wall, just about miss it, slowly build up the throttle. Bring the car to the outside here for turn 2. Try to square the car up in a straight line for the exit again. Careful with the steering inputs here. Take as much in a straight line towards the apex here as you can, square it up and then firing it out of the corner again. Do the exact same here, bring the car to the right. Try to get the car lined up, firing up for the exit. Straight line, and there we go. And we got the big run to the bus stop coming up. Bus stop, we want to have smooth steering inputs because we're running a low rear wing here, which means that it's going to be rear limited and high speed. Be careful with the rear not stepping out and getting good exit. So try to focus on getting a good run out of the corner there, because that speed is going to carry all the way down the back straight here. And then we only have the run to the line left, which is of course the easy part. And let's have a look on the outside cam how this looks like in detail. Right, so here we are to start the lap. And for turn 1, as I said, we want to be straight line brake as much as we can. So we run to the outside here. You want to be close to the wall. And then before we start braking, I want to have the car looking at this point here as much as I can. So I try to, just before I start braking, I lift a tiny bit here to get the car settled. It's optional. It just makes it a tiny bit easier with braking, and with race run you save a bit of fuel, which is what I tend to go for. What I want to focus on though is that you're turning before you start the braking. So when you start the braking, the car should already be pointing towards this side. It shouldn't be in this turn anymore, trying to come from the outside to the inside. It's really important because the more you're turning, the less you can brake, and we want to brake as much as we can initially here to brake late. Then I'm braking just before the white line at this point. I use the white line as reference. If we go to onboard, see The moment I start braking is pretty much when I hit the front of this white line. This one. So that's how I use it. A bit before from the outside cam. And then we brake, and we try to brake as much in the straight line as we can to this point here, which is in the middle of this apex and the wall, to this point. And we want to go to this point here in the straight line and then start really trail braking. Of course, we can't really go in the straight line, because if we go completely straight line, we end up here, but as much in the straight line as we can to this point here to get most of the speed out of the car. And then once we hit this point here, once the right side of the car is close to or hits the yellow or the white line on the right side, then we want to start really trail braking, getting the car pointed towards this point. And from this point here, my focus shifts. Let's go from the cockpit cam quickly again. My focus shifts from trying to slow the car down to I try to get as close to the tire wall as I can here. And hit it in the A pedal on this one. That's a shame. If you want to aim for this tire here, you're gonna get a good apex in the corner. You don't want to aim next to it, because then you're already too far to the outside, and the banking here makes the car understeer a bit because it runs a bit like pizza, going straight up and then straight down. So coming from the outside, aim for this one here, and then once we get over the crest of the car or over the crest of the track, the car will start to turn, and then we automatically hit a pretty nice apex here as long as we're aiming for the tires. You're not going to hit the tires, I promise, because the car understeers more than you think in the first part here until you get to the crown of the track. And then we slowly build the throttle up again, because we're running in a Mercedes. The Mercedes is not good with the traction at all. On top of that, we're running a very low wing to make use of that top speed. So we're gonna have to be really careful in building that throttle up. So as you can see, we're really patient. Only here we're starting to go flat out. And these two corners are easy flat, but we want to make sure that we're gonna be at the left side here as quick as we can. So we're gonna be running over the pit exit line, which is allowed, and then we're gonna be running close to the grass, so that the moment we start braking here, we're pretty much parallel to the white line on the left side. We're using as much of the track as we can. Where do we start braking is the hardest question though. What I use here is this point here as a reference. I'm going from this side here, and then when I'm almost at this point here, I'm braking. It's really tricky though, because it depends on your FOV. I'm using the side of my monitor here to be close to this point, and then I start braking. There is a marker. The marker, as you can see, are on the right, 300, 200, 100. But the moment I want to start braking, which is here, as you can see on a single monitor, I'm already past the marking. If you can see it on your third monitor, maybe, but it's all the way on the right side, and you need to be looking at the corner more than just on the right side. So I like to use this as a marker. What you could do is use the last stripe on the track here as a marker, or you could use this corner here on track as a marker as well. It's up to you. There's nothing really on the left to use either. I prefer to use this one and then just listen to the engine sound, but again, it's not ideal. There's just not much to work off here. Braking on the white line on the left side, as much in the straight line as we can, slowly making it in. And again, in the Merc, we don't have that good trail braking, and especially not that good traction. So we want to be low on the apex speed here, get the car turned as quickly as we can, and once we have the car turned, try to fire it up as straight as we can out of the corner. Then we got a small X straight here. We're running low wing, so the rear tends to be light through this corner as well. So just be careful with your steering inputs, because any steering input that's too high is not going to make the car understeer, but it's going to make the car oversteer. And big oversteer in a corner like this often means a crash. We want to bring the car over to the left as much as we can, and just like in turn 1, just before we start braking, I want to have the car straight again. So want to be bringing the car over to the left side, but we don't want to start braking when the car's still pointing towards here. We want to start braking when the car's already back again, pointing towards the corner. And that's really important to do this last adjustment of the car, where the car is heading, still on the throttle or when you're lifting. When you're lifting a tiny bit here, you're barely losing any time and you just make it easier for yourself, which is, especially in the race, when you try to make it with the fuel, and the fuel mileage is important, not a bad option at all at any level. Then we want to brake, and again, as much in a straight line, but we're gonna have to start trail braking somewhere. So we're braking kind of in a straight line as much as we can until we hit this point here in the middle of the track. And this is kind of where we start to apex. We don't apex at this point here. We start to make the corner from the middle of the track where this line is. And then from the middle of the track, we slowly go to this point here. And once we get to the inside curb, we should be coming from the outside. So we're not on the curb here already. Then we would have to make a very tight turn coming from the outside. And then once we hit the curb, we're kind of already on the exit. As you can see, I'm already on the throttle before we hit the curb. And then we just follow the inside curb for a good line on the exit. Then we got the last corner of the infield. I tend to brake just after this patch of grass. For those who've been following and watching the track guides for the VRS series, we did not like these cones, and our fight against the cones, we have won. The cones have moved, we have won territory. That means that now we can drive here on this part of the track without having to fight the cones. The cones have backed off, which is nice for us. That means we brake just, for my reference, again, from the onboard, after I hit this patch of dirt here, from the outside cam, I'm braking quite a bit forward, but it depends on your perspective how you're driving. That's how I use it. You have to brake around this patch of dirt here, what it comes down to. Braking point is not that important because we need to focus mostly on the speed carrying into the corner and the line you take out of it. The extra speed, especially here, because we've got such a big exit, does not matter much. Braking a bit earlier for a better corner is always worth it here. For braking, we want to have the right side tires on the curb here, on the yellow curb, and then we're turning in really, really late. And if you're also going to watch the GT3, so the prototype version later, the lines here between GT3 and prototypes vary a lot. So try to not copy the line of the prototype if you're in a GT3 or the other way around. Braking on the yellow curb here and then turning in really, really late. And all we want to do here is sacrifice our mid-corner speed a bit so that we can be on throttle as early as possible and have this straight line on exit here. We're struggling on traction, so the more we can get the car turned around this point here, turn in late, get the car turned, the earlier we can go on throttle, and that earlier on throttle will carry your speed all the way to the bus stop, which is a very, very long time. It is a very long time, so let's speed that up a little bit. Then we get to the bus stop, where all that time you might have gained in the infield can be lost in one go. So let's go over exactly how to do that. We want to be running as close to the wall on entry as I can. You can see we make the mirror spark a bit here, and I'm braking. You see it. I'm using this bit here. It's like looks like a traffic light. This one here. I'm using this as a reference between the 2 and the 1. It doesn't matter exactly where you brake here again. The speed you carry through the bus stop is much more important than the braking point exactly. We want to bring it over from the right side, then down 2 gears, and we want to sacrifice the entry bit for a good exit. You don't want to overshoot the middle, which means that you want to be fairly slow here already. When you're turning the most, you want to be off the brakes, which means on the curb here I'm off the brakes. And then the middle bit here, where I'm going a bit straight again, in between the direction change, I'm using this to tap the brakes a tiny bit to keep it tight in the middle. You want to be running close to the grass here, 2 tires still needing to hit the curb to avoid the off track. Then do the same here, and we want to make sure that we're turning here and our car stays to the inside in the middle here. So if we're running too deep here in the middle of the bus stop, we're losing too much time. That's why we can't enter the bus stop too fast. And then we want to aim with the right side tires to be on the right side of the white curb here, this point here. And if we did it well, again, slowly bring up the throttle here. Too much throttle will make the rear step out because we're running very low on the rear wing. And then on the exit here, we want to have the middle of the car. Look from the upside. The middle of the car needs to be at least on, I think it's this line here. And you need to be careful because a lot of times you think you're clear of the off track. You already start turning left a bit again, like I'm doing as well. And then forget that this point here is still where the off track is. So careful with that turning left too early, because I've had it happen at least a dozen times where I'm turning left too early again, and then I still get the off track even though I was clear within track limits if I wanted to. Again, if you did the bus stop well on throttle quite early, so you're running it tight, that means you can go on throttle quite early again. Keep the throttle, never off the throttle again for the last one. Should have a good run onto the second part of the oval, which brings you back all the way to the finish line to start it all over again for the next 24 hours. Because this is the easy part, without any traffic. The race is going to be long, and I wish everyone good luck. Right, so there we go. Long race ahead for everyone. As I said in the intro as well, I would recommend anyone that has the time to do this to run the special event. I think it's the best one of the year. It's the most popular one always. And if you're not running it, should be good to follow as well. Or do the IMSA this week beforehand. I wish everyone lots of luck in it. Make sure to comment if there's any questions. And I will see everyone probably next week for the VRS guides again. Bye-bye.